Hello, we're here today with the founders of a very interesting company called Resilience Lab. I never know if it has an S at the end. Resilient Lab is what I
Does not
see. Okay, so
sing it up.
Marc Goldberg and Christine Carville, welcome to BTS. So I want to start. I have to start with how Marc and I know each other. We go way back, way back. I don't want to date anyone in the company, but we both started our careers. It was my second job, Marc's kind of first, building a very interesting financial company. And Marc was the founding engineer. I was one of the founders. And the interesting thing, Marc, as I remember it, is there was this very tremendously charismatic guy that's still in my mind named Alex Vieux. And Alex Vieux is the person that introduced me to Marc. And in fact, for some reason, I still remember his middle name, Alex Serge Vieux. And there was I don't know if you remember this, Marc, but there was a bluster about Alex that I don't want to say it was Trump-like, but he could take any little thing and expand it to hyperbola. Did I get that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. He was a natural born marketer, but I thank him. And anyway, that company was many moons ago. I want to catch up to now. So why don't we start off? We're going to go into detail on Resilience Lab, but let's start with you, Christine. Talk a little bit about the journey for you. How did Resilience Lab come into your head, and what's the passion that kind of burned you? Our audience is mostly entrepreneurs and tech people, so they'd love to hear the story of how you caught the bug, and then how the journey and the struggles too, because we all know that that's the real thing.
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, so I became an entrepreneur because I went to a liberal arts college and graduated with a philosophy degree. And
Wow.
so while I was in college, I started my first company um, in order to have a job. And it also happened to have a dual purpose of being good for the environment. It was an adult incontinence product. Anyway, so then I had
Oh my
that
God.
that kicked off a journey.
You know,
Uh,
they say the best businesses are the non-sexy businesses.
yes, yes,
You're really proving that to be true.
right. And I was the youngest person in the team of founders, and so therefore I
Imagine.
was the tester. But so we launched the product, brought it to market, put it on the shelves. And after about 3 or 4 years, I just kind of burnt out from the process of bringing a consumer product to and an institutional product. And so I started my next company, which was a media company, and then I started a wine
Interesting.
company.
So you have been an entrepreneur since day
Yeah.
one. You're kind of it's in your blood. Interesting.
And like I said, it was born of necessity. But I became a jack of all trades and an expert at nothing. And so, and unemployable really at any high level. So after 12 years of doing this, 9/11 happened. And I had the opportunity to either fundraise for my last company or um, put it out of business and then, decide what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I was 32 and I had a lot of substance use and mental health challenges in my family that I was working around. And so I'd been doing a lot of studying and reading about psychology and try to help my family. And I also knew I never wanted to retire. And so I kind of put this together and I said, what do I want to dedicate the next 60 years of my life to be really, really, really good at? And so I put the company out of business, went back to school and I started off in clinical psychology
I got you.
and then decided to be a clinician. And it was in, also a great advantage that I had had so many years as an entrepreneur before, because when I did finish my studies and graduate and start at the bottom of, being the clinician, I was very quickly, I became the program director and a hot commodity of leading a team of other providers and being really effective at developing a program.
You were a standalone clinician. You had clients and you met with them, or did you work as part of a service that was providing clinical care?
I worked as part of a service for the city of New York within a larger hospital system, the Health and Hospital Corporation. But we were sort of like a team of providers that it's an evidence-based program originally from Scandinavia called assertive community treatment. And so it's doctors, it's nurses, it's social workers, it's all different providers working together for people.
And is that where you got the idea for Resilience Lab, or is there?
Yes, so exactly. So I did this for 10 years and it's extremely effective. It's really high touch and it's very collaborative. So every client that we work with has one treatment plan, and we're working to get them housing and treatment and keep them out of hospitals and out of jails. So this is where we get the idea is, okay.
I got you. Let me, because I want to let me catch Marc up on his career journey, because he's got an interesting one as well, being on both sides of the table in terms of founding companies and investing and leading companies. And then we're going to get to the kismet, how it all came together. Go ahead, Marc. So I know you have the entrepreneurial bug too, because that's kind of been your background as well. Walk me through kind of the lives that led you to Resilience Labs.
So, Kannan, if you remember, we met in 1989, which was yesterday. After that,
you are really dating us, my brother.
So I built my career around building software, building product, building company. And so I worked for HP. I was one of the product guy at Rational Software. Rational Software merged with Vertex, was bought by IBM, came back to Europe. I was the chief architect at Reuters, joined the investment fund. Eventually, we spin off the fund. I built my fund management company, and then I built a merchant bank. And so I've been straddling the world of creating software-driven businesses, and then investing, advising, and growing them. And so I've developed an expertise in understanding how to use technology, how to use software technology in whatever industry to create value and to capture value. And so that's what I've been doing in the US, in the UK, in Europe. And eventually I met Christine 9 years ago at Burning Man. It's a very, it's a very Silicon Valley.
I love it.
Actually, Christine and I used to live in Palo Alto in 1989.
I was a senior in high school at the time.
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, it's so funny. You guys have written off so many So I'm an entrepreneur too. I've started, as Marc knows, 4 or 5 companies and invested in probably 60 more over the years. I love it. And you said something that was really funny, Christine. You said I'm unemployable. Most good entrepreneurs are completely unemployable. So you have to make it happen. So I love it. It looks like that you guys brought, you're a deep domain expert, Christine, and Marc knows how to scale and grow businesses as well as technical teams. It's like a match made in heaven. So tell me the kickoff Resilience Lab. What's been the journey like since you come in? Well, I want to catch up to today because I have a lot of questions for you about. I've been involved with a lot of two-sided marketplaces over the years, and I love them. And one of the reasons I'll tell you, because I want to hear both your takes, because what you've built is a two-sided marketplace with a very special. You guys have a very special take on the supply side that I want you guys to explain to the audience. But basically, two-sided marketplaces. This is my take. Been in the Valley for 30 years. The best entrepreneurs build two-sided marketplaces because it's such a hard chicken and egg problem. You cannot solve that problem unless you have amazing chutzpah, you have amazing never give up chops, and you have amazing creativity. If you go back through the years, how the Airbnb folks, they were selling Obama owes Cheerios to keep the company's lights on because they had to get it going. Travis at Uber would do things like he would fake demand so that there'd be more drivers signing up, and he would be paying people to rent cars. So there's all these clever stories, and I want to get into what you guys did, because you guys have built a very interesting and successful two-sided marketplace for mental health. So let's get to the what's the vision of Resilience Labs, and then let's talk about some of these competitive advantages that I was talking about. Either one of you can start and help.
So the problem that we're solving is how we can provide consistent access to quality mental health. And what is the difference between the financial engineering community, the software engineering community, and the behavioral health community? They're all very large, hyper-fragmented cottage business that have been disrupted by technology. And so what we're saying is there's a huge inventory, 600,000 clinicians. How do you find the one that's the right one for you? How do you know that that person is going to deliver quality care? And how do we create a standard of quality so we can have access to consistency? And so that's what we're solving. We are creating a new way, a new standard of quality, and that's the consistency. We are providing access because our unique angle is we are in the business of minting new clinicians. We are building a system to create at scale the clinician that the US needs to provide the care to the 40% of the US population that does not have the clinician that they need. So it's consistency, it's access, working with the insurance company, and it's quality. What does quality mean? And that's what we're cracking.
Absolutely.
And that's what Renaissance cracked 20 years ago. Yeah. That's what Rational Software cracked 20 years ago. And that's what we're trying to do for behavioral health that nobody had the chutzpah to try to do.
Yeah, no, it's very clever, Christine, which is that you guys, in fact, are building the supply side of the equation through your education and through your certification. Talk a little bit about that, because Mark, I noticed you mentioned the word consistent 4 or 5 times, and that's a really important thing. It's, I can imagine, I'm not by no means an expert in mental health. I'm sure I have plenty of time for therapy in the future, but I can assume that that's one of the big problems is different therapists think about things differently. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, how you make consistency and how do you build the certification program?
And so just through my own experience, becoming a clinician, the reason there aren't enough providers in the US is, there's 2 ways to become a mental therapist. One is to become a clinical psychologist, which is harder to get into than medical school. And so it just excludes so many possible people to do it. Or you can become a master's level therapist, which is only 2 years of training. But then you have to work under a supervisor and basically educate yourself through institutes and all sorts of other postgraduate learning. And so what we discovered was that 54% of the graduates of these 2-year programs never become fully licensed therapists because they just drop off. They can't educate themselves to the point, and this is why there's not clinicians of color. This is why it's just very exclusionary, because if you're going to graduate with all of these student loans and then not be able to make enough money to get yourself through this licensing period. Yeah. And I had the tremendous luck and privilege to be able to fund my education and get through the process and have my own private practice and have business skills to develop my own private practice so I could make a great living doing all of this. Therapists don't have that. Most people become a therapist for very different reasons. And so they just, that's why it's so exclusionary and why people have just trouble accessing.
I got you. So explain to me, Mark, the therapists that go through your certification, they are now in your marketplace, and you basically are helping them provide business to them. And of course, they're there in a steady fashion for a period of time to provide that consistency for you. So it's kind of, that's the flywheel of how things go.
Absolutely. We employ them as W-2 employees. It's not the Uber of therapy. We are a practice. We hire people. We train them. We are a learning accelerant. Once they get to 100 sessions per month, we provide healthcare coverage. And so we create an environment where they can learn and they can develop themselves for the 3 years where they need to be supervised and they need to learn. At the end of the 3 years, they can decide if they want to become supervisor themselves, which is an incremental source of revenue for them, and stay with us, or if they want to leave and have their own practice. And so that's what we do. And the moat is a methodology, an online training institute, a full stack software where we measure everything and we can help them, and then a suite of insurance partnership.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you brought up one point, which is really the hot topic for most of these two-sided marketplaces, which is, are they contractors or are they employees? You know, it's still being litigated in a lot of areas for Uber, Lyft, and those types of employees. But there's a host of others. There's Thumbtack. There's, you know, you can go through the list of different services that people have. So that's very interesting. It makes you more stable, both from a legal point of view as well as from an employee point of view to do that. It probably brings a little heavier lift to the financial side of things, but you make up for that in terms of the steadiness of the level. So let's talk. How did you guys? Because I love it, and I know you guys have come to a very interesting scale. You guys have done tens of thousands. Give us. I know you're a private company, so we don't want to violate any confidences, but give us an idea of how you've scaled it up. How many tens of thousands of sessions have you done? What do you see? And then talk about the mental health market in general, because I'm just looking at what's going on online and with the phones and with our youth, having 3 kids of my own. People are going crazy. So I think the mental health, the resources needed for mental health is only going to go up in the future. Talk a little bit about the market and what you guys see there.
So a couple of numbers. We've treated more than 10,000 clients in the last 5 years. We have delivered in excess of 300,000 therapy sessions. We have around 200 clinicians on our payroll delivering, several thousand sessions per month. We are active in the 5 Northeast states, so Boston to Philly. We will eventually scale all across the US, but right now we're very focused on those 5 states. We have 9 insurance partnerships from United, Cigna, Aetna, etc. And that has been the scale. That has been the scale. We are a scale-up company. We have around 50.
You mentioned something really, really key there. So you are on the insurance company list. You have a code, and so if I have insurance with United Health, I can see right away if it's covered, and if it's covered, I just have to give you my.
Yes, and you will only pay the copay, which is roughly $20 or $30, and the rest will be paid by us, by your insurance company, and it makes therapy much more affordable.
Absolutely. And so how do you see is the demand, how things, so we talk about the supply side. You guys have got a very unique advantage there, and kudos to you, Christine, for building the educational and the certification programs. Talk to me about the demand side. How do you go out and acquire a customer? What's the heavy lifting there, and how do you guys approach it?
So we, like most of the players in the industry in the last 5 years, have lived through a shift from direct to consumer plus referral from PCP and hospital system to direct to consumer plus PCP and hospital system to business to enterprise. And so that has been the 5-year shift. Customer acquisition cost on the direct to consumer prices have increased, decreasing the viability of the unit economics, because it's all about contribution LTV to CAC, and which is one of our North Star, both on the supply and on the demand. And as you mentioned, Kannan, it's a very subtle equilibrium between the supply and the demand. And so you start to believe that if you build it, they will come, and actually they don't come, and you can only hire people if you can feed them. And so it's managing that equilibrium and not growing too fast is very, very
Well,
subtle.
my gut tells me, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that if you have a good therapist, it's a very sticky business. I can speak anecdotally. I know people that have been going to the same therapist for 20 years. Um, so it seems to me that there's a relationship
Yep.
built there that lends some continuity to revenues. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. And we're not in the treatment business, we're in the therapy business. We're not here to fix you, we're here to support you so you can live your best life. How that translates is that what we've heard is that companies like Talkspace have an average treatment time of 4 months, and companies like us have an average treatment time of 10 to 12 months. And people vote with their feet. So it's a super personal, super sticky relationship. And once you found somebody that you can work with, you stay with that person because it's very hard to find the right one.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so let's shift. First of all, kudos to both of you for building the ramp up to getting some critical mass. Looks like there's a lot of growth in terms of the states coverage. There's a lot of growth ahead. Let's talk about kind of what we're hearing in the market, kind of the good, bad, and the other. Obviously, everybody here, since ChatGPT came out, is talking about LLMs and chat bots, and of course, a lot of people now. Healthcare is very tricky because there's a lot of regulation. It's very privileged information, but people are talking about therapy bots and where they fit in. Can they be a first pass to then do a matching to somebody personal? Give us your take on how overhyped that part of the business is and where we see it going and how you'd like to play in it.
Well, I'll just start by saying Marc brought up Talkspace, and their model at the very beginning, they were a first mover in the area, was therapy on demand. Your therapist in your pocket, real-time communication or asynchronous, and to me that doesn't help anybody. And I think that plays out in why people are only have a 4-month average relationship with those therapists, because it's not teaching people the skills and the frustration tolerance they need to get through the cadence of every week. It's sort of just like keeping people babysitting, essentially. And what we know from research, like what makes the best treatment, is the relationship between the therapist and the client. That is what the biggest indicator of whether or not therapy is going to work and be. And so that's not going to be replaced with a bot. But what we do see is how well it can enhance the session to session improvement. Just being able to make suggestions and recommendations and attend to what's happening in the work. And so we do see this as being a really helpful tool to therapy and to treatment. And there's a space for it for sure.
Gotcha.
So from a technology perspective, we use LLM for diagnostic and matching. Okay, and we have R&D teams working on that. I think the future is not an LLM, but it's the merge of symbolic AI and an LLM so that you can enable collaboration. And so it's not an LLM, which is like a super smart parrot powered by the network with infinite CPU. You have to merge that with a domain ontology that understand the concept. So understanding the concept plus statistical reasoning is where we see the future. We are doing a lot of R&D around those points. We use LLM for enhanced diagnostic. Are you prescribing the right things? Enhanced matching. Am I matching you with the right clinician? But the future is collaboration at scale and being able to understand the problem domain. And we do a lot of work around object modeling and ontology modeling, which we have yet to expose into a product.
Gotcha. Well, it's very interesting. It's like, as someone who's kind of been around computers my entire life, what computers are good at is pattern recognition. And if they have, we already are seeing it in radiology and even dermatology. When you can train a model to look at these things and then get the data from the best dermatologists in the world, so that they've got that classifier, and that they will determine what that is better than any one dermatologist. What they are extremely poor at is empathy, or in terms of, understanding kind of, a higher level of kind of, hey, this is not just a black and white issue. So it's very interesting. I think a lot of people are leaning that way. I think I can see even now, when I look at some companies out there that are most of them are private but have raised money in a good way. They're looking at it for, there's an initial, remember that movie Her, right? The movie Her, where he falls in love with that first kind of level of getting to know you and releasing some anxiety is good. And it's a very interesting space, and I'm glad you guys are looking into it and seeing how, keeping an eye on it in terms of how it can grow. I think, on the other hand, with the 300,000 plus sessions you have an amazing repository of data, albeit protected, that could go a long way to moving this market forward. So this has been great. It's a very exciting space. Mental health, I don't want to say it's an exciting space, it's a growing space. I think that people are saying that it's scheduled to be $70 billion over the next very short term. So that's exciting. What do you guys see as the big thing on the horizon? What's kind of the next big thing for Resilience Lab?
I think the US healthcare system is amazing when you compare it to the other country. It's the highest spend from all the developed country with the lowest outcome measured as expected life. And so the question is, mental health is one of the core driver of the total cost of care. Because we have a multi-payer system, there is absolutely no interest in prevention. And so the question is, how does collaborative care with what we bring on the mental health, can that be one of the unlock of this 20% GDP, which is spent with such a low efficiency? And so collaborative care, which is, linking to the other vertical, and we're bringing on board a chief medical officer and more MDs. So the therapist as the quarterback of your health, and enabling better collaboration in healthcare delivery, I think, is where we will see gigantic outcome going on in the future.
I love it. And we could have a whole nother podcast on the inefficiencies of the American healthcare system. Yes. The incentives are completely set up for failure. And as a result, we get what we get. This has been fantastic. You guys are amazing entrepreneurs. I haven't mentioned yet that you're both married, which is another amazing
to each other.
Kudos to both of you, because we all know how hard it is just to be married. We all know how hard it is to build a company. To build a company and be married to the same person, there's a little exponential factor there, and so there's even more kudos to both of you. And this has been great. We'll
thank you. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for your time. We really had a great time talking to you.
Yeah, awesome, guys. And we'll be hearing a lot more from Resilience Lab in the future. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.